Hi, welcome to a new video. If you are new here, my name is Amandine. I've been living in Singapore for 3 years, and on this channel I like to share about anything that's happening in Singapore. If you are moving to Singapore, you might find yourself adapting to the local custom, norms and habits. This may include picking up the local language, trying the local cuisine and embracing the Singapore way of life. So today I wanted to share how living for 3 years in Singapore has changed me. The first point is that I'm way more disciplined here in Singapore than what I was back in France. I wasn't like a hooligan or anything like that, but you know, in the French culture it's really common to try to find like a loophole in the rules and regulation that there is so that you can get advantage out of it. But here in Singapore I've been like way more disciplined. I'm waiting in line, I'm not trying to cut the queue or anything like that. I think it's also down to the fact that here in Singapore, if you're not following the rules, like for example you are littering or you eat in the MRT, you can have consequences. In France I would say they are way more like tolerant about that, which is like also like has downside definitely. Second thing is that I'm not longing for Western food as much as I used to do when I first arrived here in Singapore. Don't get me wrong, I really like my cheese still, but like I'm not like a big wine drinker though, but cheese is really a big thing for me, and like all the sweets. Like in France we can find like a lot of sweet biscuits, but a bit less in Singapore. But what I mean is that now I'm really used to the Singapore food and I'm able to find like comfort food within the local cuisine. I used to say that chicken rice is kind of my comfort food now, but actually it's been a long time since I had it because of the like since the price spiked. I haven't had it for like at least 2 or 3 months, so maybe I should go back there. But like I mentioned sweet, now I really like the pan and waffle, is like my favorite. So definitely it would be interesting to know like how many Western food I have and how many local food I have during a week, to see like actually how I'm balancing it out. But I think it would be like 70% local cuisine and 30% Western food. So yeah, and I'm living well like that, and it's definitely good for my budget because obviously local food is usually way cheaper than Western food. Like here when I want to buy cheese I have to spend at least $14, and $14 is like at least 2 meals. So it doesn't really make sense for your budget to crave it every day. If you want to settle here in Singapore, you have to find like compromise. Third point is that since I'm in Singapore, I'm doing way more exercise and I'm in a way better shape than when I was in France. Might be also because back then I was a student in France, so I had like kind of like the student life where I was like studying, playing video games and like just going to class, nothing much. Also I had a car in France, so I wasn't walking as much as I am here in Singapore. Here in Singapore I don't have a car. Most of the time when I have to go outside I'm always walking a little bit, but it's just that here in Singapore you have really great outdoor exercise area. Now I'm going to the gym also because my company is paying for it. It's just in Singapore they are kind of like promoting a healthier way of life, and I think also it's because the life here is very competitive, so if you're not able to keep up with like kind of the standard, then it's really hard. So there is like a sad side to it, but for me I've seen a lot of benefit because I'm feeling way better like in myself than I was back in France. Fourth point, I mentioned that I'm doing more exercise now, but actually when I first arrived in Singapore I used to go to the pool every day because I thought it was such a luxury to be able to have a pool in my apartment complex. So I used to go to the pool every day. Now it's been a long time since I haven't been, mostly because it's the rainy season now in Singapore and the rain is like sometimes cold, so the water in the pool is getting cold also, and now I feel like the water is way too cold for me to go in. But back then I would like jump straight into it, so now I'm getting like a cold feet. Fifth point is that since I'm in Singapore I haven't cooked like so much. I haven't used any pre-prepared food or canned food as compared to when I was back in France. Especially as a student I had like not much time to cook, so I would like just buy pre-prepared meals. but since in Singapore it's so easy to go in a food court and get a fresh meal, fresh cooked meal, I haven't like been doing that here in Singapore. I think this kind of thing also like are quite expensive in Singapore. If you want to get a pre-prepared meal, it would be at least like $8 to $10, which is not worth it when you know that you can get a really nice meal for $5 to $6 in the food court. 6th point is that here in Singapore I'm going way more outdoor than I used to go. Back then I wasn't so much like an outdoor girl, but here in Singapore, because the weather allows it most of the time, you can really go out and explore. Like there are so many places to explore in Singapore that I really like. I really need to give you a list, but you can really enjoy your time outdoor here in Singapore. Even though like most of the time it's super sunny. Okay, when it's not rainy, sometimes it's super sunny, so usually people avoid going out like maybe from like 12 to 3. After that it's a bit better because then the sun is not as strong. But if you go hiking, for example, often you have the trees that are covering you, so it's not really an issue and it's really enjoyable to go out in Singapore. 7th is that here in Singapore I've been exposed to way more culture as compared to when I was in France. So here I live with my boyfriend who is Chinese Singaporean, and then my flightmate is Indian from Mauritius, so we really get to exchange a lot and it's like so nice to have this blend of culture here in Singapore. Often if you go to a flat sharing, you will live with people from very different background. Our previous flatmate, for example, was from the Philippines. Even at work I have some colleagues from Europe, some are Singaporean, from Malaysia, so there are like a bit of everything. And as compared to France, where you are kind of like invited to hide where you are from and your beliefs, here in Singapore everyone is able to live together and it's just like nice to see. Everyone is able to share a little bit of who they are. They are really letting you express who you are as long as you are not preventing someone else from being, and that's really nice to see. 8th point is that I'm not bothered by the hot, humid weather anymore. When you arrive in Singapore, you will start to sweat quite a lot. For some people it's really an issue, but actually for that I got used to it really quickly because I really enjoy hot weather. Like I'm made to live in the hot weather, and currently in Singapore it has been like 24 degrees. It has been like way too cold for me. I've been like wearing socks and sweaters, like kind of like it's winter. So I'm really happy most of the time in Singapore when it's hot. The humidity level, I became like very sensitive to it. In a way it's not bothering me, but I will know when it's gonna rain. Like for example, in the morning when it's really sunny, I'm like, oh okay, then I know it's gonna rain later, and then I plan according to that. Staying longer in Singapore, you will get used to the weather that is kind of like predictable. 9th point is that I'm doing more things independently since I'm here in Singapore, but I think it's the case if you are moving to any other country that is not your own, because most of the time you are kind of like giving up on your family. I mean, they are often like living very far from you, but also your friends, so you get to do more by yourself. I got lucky because I have flatmates, so I'm not always alone. But when you are moving abroad, you really have to be confident about whether you are able to live by yourself, with yourself, and for that most of the time you really have to push yourself hard to maybe try new things, and that's what I've been trying to do, as I have like not my family and friends to babysit me anymore. Last point is that here in Singapore I'm dressing up way less than when I was back in France, even if it was just to go to class. Here in Singapore it's just too hot to wear like too much makeup and like heavy clothes, layer clothes. It's just like something I cannot do. So most of the time, like if you see me around the neighborhood, like I will like just wear something like that. So this is a overall that is like a short. I have just like a small shirt underneath, and when I go out I will just wear my flip-flop. I still dress up a little bit more when I go to the office. Sometimes I wear pants and like a bit like nicer shoes, but wearing flip-flop in the daily life is really not something I would do in France because it's like too informal, and like there is no reason for us to do that back in France. So yeah, here in Singapore I've been like learning to just like be chill. It's like really relaxed. Anyway, Singapore is not known for like the super fashion style. Like only if you go orchard you will try to dress up, because then you can be spotted by the orchard road fashion. I hope I was able to share how living in Singapore is such an incredible experience. It has allowed me to grow and develop in certain areas that I thought wasn't possible, but I also learned to let go on certain things. Singapore has changed my life in the best way possible, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity. Just looking to see what's more to come. Do let me know in the comments how your life has changed since you moved in, or if you were expecting or not what I said today. Thank you so much for watching today. Do remember to follow me on Instagram and TikTok because I'm really active on here, and I will see you next time on YouTube. Bye bye!